Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers channel. Today we will learn about the issue of how Port Charles residents are navigating through an emotionally charged holiday season filled with grief, manipulation, and family turmoil as the December 26th episode unfolds with dramatic intensity. Tracy's heartbreaking holiday. The Quartermaine mansion feels emptier than ever this Christmas season as Tracy Quartermaine grapples with the profound loss of Monica Quartermaine. This marks the first holiday celebration without the beloved family matriarch, and the weight of her absence hangs heavy throughout the sprawling estate. Monica's passing has left an irreplaceable void that no amount of festive decorations or holiday cheer can fill. For Tracy specifically, the grief cuts particularly deep. These two formidable women shared decades of history together. From their early days as rivals, competing for the same man to eventually developing a complex friendship built on mutual respect and understanding. The emotional burden becomes even more complicated when we consider that Monica entrusted Tracy with the family home in her final wishes. The house itself serves as a constant reminder of everything Monica represented: her strength, her unwavering dedication to family, and her role as the heart of the Quartermaine clan. Every room holds memories, every corner echoes with conversations past. Tracy finds herself walking through familiar hallways and suddenly being transported back to moments they shared together, both the tender and the tumultuous. There's speculation among fans that viewers might be treated to flashback sequences showcasing the evolution of Tracy and Monica's relationship. These retrospective moments could illuminate the dramatic journey these women took from being bitter adversaries to becoming confidants who understood each other in ways few others could. Their bond was forged through shared experiences of heartbreak, family drama, betrayal, and ultimately, forgiveness. Monica was one of the few people who could match Tracy's sharp wit and see through her defensive exterior to the vulnerable woman beneath. The holiday season amplifies Tracy's sense of loss. Christmas was always Monica's favorite time of year, and she worked tirelessly to bring the family together despite their frequent conflicts and complicated dynamics. Now Tracy must shoulder that responsibility alone, carrying forward Monica's legacy while simultaneously mourning her passing. The mansion that once buzzed with Monica's energy and warmth now feels like a museum of memories, beautiful but haunting. Sidwell's dangerous soiree. In stark contrast to Tracy's somber reflections, the notorious crime lord Jen Sidwell has decided to throw caution to the wind by hosting an extravagant soiree at the infamous Windermere Castle. This decision raises eyebrows throughout Port Charles, as Windermere has long been associated with danger, secrets, and mysterious happenings. The castle's dark history makes it the perfect backdrop for what promises to be an evening filled with tension and potential disaster. The guest list for this high-stakes gathering is perhaps the most intriguing element of the entire affair. Sidwell hasn't exactly endeared himself to the Port Charles community since arriving in town. His ruthless business practices and intimidation tactics have made him more enemies than friends. Yet somehow, he's managed to assemble what could be called the party of the year, though attendance may be more mandatory than voluntary for many guests. Jordan Ashford will certainly be present at the festivities, given her current employment arrangement with Sidwell. Her position puts her in the uncomfortable spot of working for a man whose methods she likely finds questionable at best. During the soiree, Jordan makes a significant observation that could have far-reaching consequences. What does she notice? Perhaps something that others miss in the glittering chaos of the party. Her trained detective instincts don't simply disappear because she's changed employers. The deception ladies might also receive invitations, though their attendance would put them in proximity to a dangerous criminal mastermind. Sidwell has shown particular interest in various Port Charles business ventures, and the cosmetics company could very well be on his radar. The question becomes whether Lucy, Maxie, Sasha, and Brooklyn would risk attending such an event, knowing full well who their host really is. More troubling is Sidwell's collection of powerful individuals who now find themselves under his control through various forms of leverage and blackmail. Mayor Laura Collins, mob boss Sonny Corinthos, Congressman Drew Kane, and the recently returned Britt Westburn all have their own compelling reasons to fear Sidwell's influence. He's managed to secure damaging information or threatening circumstances that keep each of these influential figures dancing to his tune. Will they be forced to attend his celebration, putting on false smiles while seething with resentment underneath? The journey to Spoon Island itself becomes part of the intrigue. Who will brave the boat ride across the dark waters to reach Windermere's shores? The isolation of the castle creates an atmosphere where anything could happen. Far from the watchful eyes of Port Charles proper, guests would be trapped there until the return ferry arrives, making them captive to whatever drama might unfold during the evening. Perhaps the most dangerous element of this entire gathering revolves around Anna Devane's current predicament. She remains hidden somewhere on the castle grounds, trying to evade Sidwell's detection while gathering intelligence on his criminal operations. With the castle filled with guests, staff, and Sidwell's security personnel, the risk of someone stumbling upon her hiding place increases exponentially. A single wrong turn by an unsuspecting partygoer could expose Anna's presence and put her life in immediate jeopardy. Will someone discover her during the chaos of the celebration? Kevin's crucial support. Thankfully, psychiatrist Kevin Collins remains in Port Charles rather than traveling elsewhere for the holidays. His presence in town becomes absolutely essential given the escalating threats facing his wife, Laura. The mayor finds herself squarely in Sidwell's crosshairs, dealing with pressures and dangers that would break lesser individuals. While Laura has proven time and again that she's more than capable of handling herself in crisis situations, Sidwell represents a different breed of adversary, calculating, ruthless, and seemingly always 3 steps ahead. Kevin's support provides Laura with the emotional foundation she needs to face these challenges head-on. Their marriage has weathered countless storms over the years, and Kevin understands better than anyone how to be there for Laura when she needs him most. He offers not just love and companionship, but also the professional insight of someone trained to help others navigate psychological stress and trauma. On Friday's episode, Kevin finds himself expressing gratitude to someone. This moment raises questions about who has earned Kevin's appreciation and why. Has someone provided crucial assistance to Laura? Did a friend step forward with information or resources that helped their situation? Perhaps Kevin is thanking Jordan for discreetly passing along intelligence about Sidwell's operations. Or maybe he's expressing appreciation to Sonny for using his connections to gather information on the crime lord. The identity of this person and the reason for Kevin's gratitude could reveal important developments in the ongoing battle against Sidwell's influence. Willow's desperate appeal. The tension between Willow Corinthos and Drew Kane reaches new heights following the disastrous courtroom testimony that occurred recently. Drew's fury over Alexis Davis's questioning strategy during Portia Robinson's time on the witness stand has created devastating consequences for Willow's relationship with Scout, Drew's daughter. The congressman made his position crystal clear. Willow would not be seeing Scout during the holiday season, effectively punishing both the young girl and her stepmother for actions neither of them controlled. Drew's reaction stems from his fundamental demand that Alexis focus exclusively on Willow's defense without branching into other areas. From his perspective, questioning Portia about unrelated matters represented an unacceptable distraction from the primary goal of securing Willow's freedom. The fact that this courtroom maneuver failed to advance Willow's case only intensified Drew's anger. He views Alexis's representation as conditional upon her following his instructions exactly, showing a controlling nature that grows more concerning with each passing day. Willow appeared genuinely shocked and appalled by Drew's harsh response and cruel decision to separate Scout from her family during the holidays. This may represent a turning point in how Willow views her relationship with Drew. She's beginning to see the manipulative and vindictive sides of his personality that he previously kept hidden beneath a veneer of charm and political polish. His willingness to use Scout as a weapon to punish those who displease him reveals the true nature of the man she's been involved with. Now Willow must attempt the difficult task of changing Drew's mind and convincing him to allow Scout to spend time with her family during this special season. This conversation will likely be fraught with tension as Willow tries to appeal to Drew's better nature while he remains convinced that his anger is justified. Will Drew soften his stance, or will he dig in deeper, proving that his need for control supersedes any consideration for his daughter's happiness? Willow faces the challenge of advocating for Scout while also recognizing that her own choices led to this complicated situation. The outcome of this appeal could determine not only Scout's holiday plans, but also the future trajectory of Willow's relationship with Drew. Next, we will learn about the shocking anonymous letter that just landed in Alexis Davis's hands and could completely unravel the carefully constructed timeline surrounding Congressman McConkey's shooting. What appeared to be just another day in Port Charles has transformed into something far more sinister, and the implications of this mysterious correspondence are about to send shockwaves through multiple families in ways no one could have anticipated. The mysterious delivery. In the latest episode of General Hospital, Alexis Davis found herself on the receiving end of what might be the most explosive piece of information she's encountered in months. The scene unfolded in the courthouse hallway, just as she was gathering her belongings and preparing to leave after another routine day of legal proceedings. The atmosphere was mundane, almost peaceful, with the typical sounds of courthouse activity echoing through the corridors. Court staff members were shuffling papers, lawyers were exchanging brief pleasantries, and everything seemed perfectly ordinary until a messenger approached Alexis with a plain envelope in hand. The delivery itself was unremarkable at first glance. There was no dramatic music, no ominous lighting, just a simple hand-to-hand exchange that could have been any standard legal document. For a brief moment, Alexis's expression shifted to one of mild concern, her mind likely jumping to the possibility that she was being served with yet another subpoena or legal notice. In her line of work, unexpected deliveries rarely bring good news. She accepted the envelope with practiced professionalism, her fingers carefully opening the seal as she prepared herself mentally for whatever legal matter might require her immediate attention. But as her eyes scanned the contents of that letter, everything changed. The words on that page contained information so significant, so potentially explosive, that it had the power to completely rewrite the narrative surrounding one of Port Charles's most high-profile criminal cases. This wasn't a subpoena. This wasn't a routine legal notice. This was intelligence, pure and calculated, delivered with surgical precision to exactly the right person at exactly the right time. The contents that changed everything. The letter was brief, almost clinical in its presentation. No flowery language, no emotional appeals, just cold, hard facts laid out with deliberate clarity. It read, "Dear Ms. Davis, thought you might find the following information useful. On the night of Congressman Kane's shooting, Michael Corinthos was at Drew's house and Tracy Quartermain saw him there. Merry Christmas." Those few sentences contained enough explosive information to potentially blow apart the entire prosecution's timeline and raise serious questions about who knew what and when. The greeting itself deserves careful examination. "Dear Ms. Davis" establishes a professional tone, suggesting the sender understands legal protocols and knows how to communicate with attorneys. The phrase "thought you might find the following information useful" is particularly intriguing because it doesn't demand action or suggest a specific course of investigation. Instead, it positions the information as a gift, a tool that Alexis can choose to use or not use based on her own judgment. This approach is sophisticated because it doesn't force Alexis into any particular position or make her feel manipulated. The core information itself is devastating in its simplicity. Michael Corinthos was at Drew's house on the night of the shooting. Tracy Quartermain witnessed this. These two facts, stated so plainly, create an immediate problem for multiple people's versions of events. If Michael was there, why wasn't this information disclosed earlier? What was Michael doing at Drew's residence that night? And most importantly, what does Tracy know about the circumstances surrounding the congressman's shooting that she hasn't yet revealed? The closing "Merry Christmas" is perhaps the most telling detail of all. It's slightly awkward, almost inappropriately cheerful given the gravity of the information being shared. This isn't the warm holiday greeting of a friend or well-wisher. This is punctuation with purpose, a small flourish that adds just enough humanity to make the letter seem less calculated than it actually is. The timing of this delivery, just before the holidays, ensures that everyone involved will spend their Christmas break contemplating the implications of this revelation. Why this letter matters more than you think. What makes this correspondence so significant isn't just the information it contains, but who received it and why. This letter wasn't addressed to Anna Devane, the police commissioner, who would typically be the recipient of evidence related to an ongoing criminal investigation. It wasn't sent to the Port Charles Police Department, where it could have been logged as an anonymous tip and processed through official channels. It was deliberately sent to Alexis Davis, a lawyer who understands the nuances of timing, leverage, and strategic deployment of information in legal proceedings. This distinction is absolutely critical. Sending this to law enforcement would have triggered an immediate investigation, potentially alerting everyone involved and giving them time to coordinate their stories or prepare their defenses. But sending it to Alexis, someone who thinks like a chess player rather than a police officer, ensures that the information will be held, analyzed, and deployed at precisely the moment when it can do the most damage or provide the most benefit. Alexis Davis doesn't chase facts recklessly. She doesn't make impulsive moves based on incomplete information. Instead, she gathers intelligence, assesses all angles, and waits for the perfect moment to strike. She understands that premature disclosure of key evidence can actually weaken a case rather than strengthen it. The sender of this letter knew all of this, which tells us they understand Alexis's methodology and trust her to handle this information with strategic precision. Consider what's missing from this letter. There's no accusation. No one is being directly implicated in the shooting itself. There's no editorial commentary about Michael's character or Drew's honesty. There's no apparent motive stated for why this information is being shared. These omissions are just as important as what is included because they allow the facts to speak for themselves without the distraction of bias or agenda. This is testimony-adjacent information presented in its purest form, facts that can be verified, witnesses that can be called, a timeline that can be examined. The real target isn't who you think. At first glance, this letter appears to target Michael Corinthos directly. After all, he's the one being placed at a specific location at a critical time. But that's a surface-level reading that misses the deeper strategic purpose of this disclosure. Michael's presence at Drew's house doesn't necessarily implicate him in any crime. What it does do, however, is create serious problems for Drew's version of events without completely destroying Michael's reputation or legal standing. This is sophisticated warfare. The letter introduces doubt about Drew's truthfulness and transparency without making any direct accusations that could be easily defended against. It raises questions about what conversations took place that night, what information was shared, and whether Drew has been completely forthcoming about his activities and knowledge surrounding the shooting. These are the kinds of questions that erode credibility slowly but surely, creating a foundation of suspicion that can be built upon later. Michael himself becomes a complicating factor in Drew's narrative. If Michael was there, was he aware of Drew's plans or activities? Did he witness anything significant? Has he been truthful in his own statements about that evening? These questions don't make Michael a villain, but they do make him a potential witness with information that could contradict or complicate the official timeline. In legal terms, this is often more valuable than direct evidence of wrongdoing because it creates uncertainty and forces multiple parties to address discrepancies in their accounts. The architect behind the scenes. Now we arrive at the most fascinating question. Who sent this letter? The answer, when you examine all the available evidence and contextual clues, points to one person who has the means, motive, and opportunity to orchestrate this particular disclosure. Martin Gray emerges as the most likely candidate, and the reasoning behind this conclusion is both elegant and damning. Think back to earlier episodes, to small moments that seemed insignificant at the time but now take on new meaning. Martin was present in situations where he could observe Tracy and Michael together. He paid attention to their interactions, noting details that others might have overlooked or dismissed as unimportant. Most crucially, he didn't act on this information immediately. Instead, he filed it away, understanding that premature disclosure would waste valuable leverage and potentially alert his targets before he was ready to make his move. Martin's presence in and around the Quartermain mansion over recent months has given him access to information and observations that few others possess. He's been in a position to overhear conversations, witness interactions, and piece together a timeline of events that others might not even realize is significant. His legal background means he understands exactly how to present information in a way that maximizes its impact while minimizing his own exposure to consequences. The structure and tone of the letter itself bears Martin's fingerprints. It operates in that gray area between ethics and effectiveness that Martin navigates so expertly. It provides just enough information to be useful without crossing the line into witness tampering or obstruction of justice. It's anonymous enough to protect the sender while being specific enough to be immediately actionable. This is sophisticated legal gamesmanship executed by someone who understands both the rules and how to work around them without technically breaking them. The strategic brilliance of anonymity. Martin's decision to remain anonymous while sending this information to Alexis reveals a deep understanding of human psychology and legal strategy. By keeping his identity hidden, he achieves multiple objectives simultaneously. First, he maintains plausible deniability about his involvement in what could be construed as interference in an ongoing legal matter. Second, he ensures that Alexis will evaluate the information on its own merits rather than through the filter of knowing Martin's potential ulterior motives. Third, he positions himself to potentially benefit regardless of how events unfold. The choice of Alexis as the recipient is particularly brilliant because Martin knows she would immediately dismiss anything that seemed overtly manipulative or agenda-driven. Alexis has spent decades in the legal profession and has developed finely tuned instincts about when she's being used or manipulated. By presenting the information in such a straightforward, fact-based manner, Martin bypasses those defenses and gives Alexis exactly what she values most: actionable intelligence that she can verify and deploy at her discretion. Martin also understands that Tracy Quartermain, named as the witness in the letter, represents a credible but unpredictable element in this equation. Tracy is no one's puppet. She has her own agenda, her own sense of integrity, and her own reasons for being truthful or evasive. By forcing Tracy into the spotlight as a potential witness, Martin creates chaos that he can exploit regardless of how Tracy ultimately responds. If she confirms Michael's presence, it validates the letter's information. If she denies it or claims not to remember, it raises questions about why she would lie or what she might be protecting. The hidden agenda nobody sees coming. Here's where the strategy gets truly devious. This letter isn't actually about helping Willow secure her freedom, despite the fact that the information could potentially aid in her defense. Willow is incidental to Martin's real objectives. She's a convenient beneficiary of information that serves much larger strategic purposes. Martin's true goal is to destabilize Drew Kane's position as a congressman and create permanent leverage that can be exploited long into the future. By introducing doubts about Drew's honesty and transparency surrounding the shooting, Martin establishes a foundation for future manipulation. If Willow walks free because this information casts doubt on the prosecution's timeline, and if Drew's own version of events starts to wobble under scrutiny, Martin doesn't need public credit for the outcome. What he gains is something far more valuable than recognition. He gains power over a sitting member of Congress. The beauty of this strategy is that it creates a permanent record of questionable behavior, or at minimum questionable judgment on Drew's part. Even if Drew ultimately faces no criminal charges or legal consequences, the shadow of doubt will linger. Future political opponents can reference this incident. Future blackmailers can use it as leverage. And Martin, operating from the shadows, can potentially exploit Drew's vulnerability whenever it serves his purposes. The addition of potential perjury charges for Tracy represents an unexpected bonus in Martin's calculations. If Tracy is forced to testify and her testimony contradicts previous statements or implies she withheld relevant information, she could face legal consequences of her own. For Martin, who has his own complicated history with the Quartermaines, creating legal jeopardy for Tracy while simultaneously undermining Drew's credibility represents a 2-for-1 victory that must feel particularly satisfying. The perfect crime that isn't actually a crime. What makes Martin's move so brilliant is that he's achieved all of this without technically breaking any laws. Anonymous letters aren't illegal. Sharing factual information isn't witness tampering if you're simply stating what happened without telling anyone how to testify. Martin has positioned himself in that ethically murky but legally defensible space where he can claim innocent motives if ever confronted, while knowing full well the chaos his letter will unleash. The Merry Christmas closing represents the final masterstroke of this entire operation. It's deliberately awkward, just human enough to seem authentic, but also carrying an unmistakable tone of satisfaction. This is Martin's way of letting whoever ultimately figures out his involvement know that he's aware of the disruption he's causing and he's enjoying every moment of it. It's the equivalent of a serial killer leaving a calling card, except Martin's crimes are legal, making him effectively untouchable. The letter isn't clever in an obvious way, and that's precisely the point. Looking back, all the clues were visible. Martin's observations of Tracy and Michael, his access to the Quartermaine mansion, his legal expertise, his understanding of how to manipulate situations without leaving fingerprints. We had all the pieces of this puzzle in front of us, but we were looking at them individually rather than as parts of a larger pattern. The real genius is that Martin designed this move to be obvious in hindsight. He wants certain people to eventually realize he orchestrated this situation because that realization itself becomes another form of leverage. Drew will know, or at least strongly suspect, who sent that letter. Tracy might figure it out, but they'll have no proof, no recourse, and no way to retaliate without potentially making their own situations worse. Martin has created a situation where his targets know they've been outmaneuvered but can't do anything about it. This is what true strategic thinking looks like in Port Charles. Not dramatic confrontations or violent acts, but carefully planted information that cascades through multiple lives like dominoes falling in precisely the pattern the architect intended. Martin hasn't fired a shot, hasn't made a threat, hasn't broken a single law, yet he's potentially altered the trajectory of a criminal case, a congressional career, and multiple family dynamics with nothing more than a single sheet of paper delivered at exactly the right moment to exactly the right person.